Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do a crazy project. It's called the Saxon Braid. The Saxon Braid is this. It's basically 6 cables that are all weaving and braided in and out of each other, but it's got a nice little pattern. Saxon Braid can get very confusing very quickly just because you're having to manage a ton of different cables at once, and sometimes they're going over, sometimes they're going under, and you can easily, very quickly get lost. When I am making a Saxon braid, I have a pretty simple system that I like to use that helps me keep track of everything. So if you actually look at a Saxon braid, it's the only thing that it's made up of are a series of X's stacked on top of each other. So the first row of X's we have, there's gonna be 3 X's, 1, 2, 3. And then on top of that row of X's, you've got just 2 X's. Then on top of those 2 X's, you'll have just 1 X right in the middle. And then once you're past that part, you're gonna have 2 X's, and then on top of those 2 X's, you're gonna have 3 X's. And so basically what you're doing is you're following a pattern of 3, 2, 1, and then 2, 3, and then 2, 1. So 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. And you're basically making a diamond pattern. And all you're doing is lining up those X's, and then the cables are just navigating, using those X's to navigate. Hopefully that makes more sense when I'm explaining it to you, but as you actually start making the pattern yourself, it actually gets pretty easy. All you're gonna need to know how to do is how to cable knit. So if you don't know how to do that, definitely check out the tutorials I have on cable knitting, and make sure you have a cable knitting needle as well. Otherwise, let's get started. To give you a nice little play-by-play, here's what we're gonna be doing to start off. We're gonna be doing the first row of stitches. We're gonna be focusing on the first row of X's. So here's an X, X, and an X, so there's gonna be 3 X's that we're gonna be working on first. So I'm just gonna draw them out. Here's an X, X, and an X. And to figure out how many stitches you're going to need, I'm just gonna think in terms of the X's. So each X is made up of 2 2x2 cables that are crossing themselves. So it's gonna be 4 stitches. So we're going to have 4 stitches for this X, 4 stitches for this X, and 4 stitches for that X. So you can just write it out here, 4, 4, and 4. And then in between the X's, I'm going to purl 4 stitches as well. And that's going to make these nice little spaces. So it's going to be another 4, 4, 4, and 4 on the end sides as well. So some more 4s and 4. And then I'm just gonna, I like to have a little bit of room just on the ends, just because I don't like the cable going all the way up to the end. So I'm just gonna make space for 2 stitches for a nice little border. It's just gonna be a plain little border. For the total, you should have 32 stitches. I'm just gonna start knitting and purling right off the bat, so it might be a little tight or difficult. So if you just want to knit through this first row straight away just to make it a little easier and give yourself some wiggle room, go ahead and do that. But I'm just going to start right off the bat working out this pattern of knitting and purling. So the first one is going to be the 2 for the border. So I'm just going to purl 2 stitches. And for the border, you can either knit or purl it. It doesn't really matter, just because for me, it's just going to be a nice little border. I'm going to be switching between knitting and purling for the border to create kind of a seed stitch, but you can do whatever you want. Now, next up is going to be 4 stitches right before the X, the first X that we have. So I'm going to purl 4 stitches. There's 1. My yarn is all tangled up here. There's 2, 3, and 4. After that, you're going to be knitting 4 stitches for that first X. So knit 4, And it's always tough for just this very first row just because there's not much space. It can get kind of tight. There's 2 and 3 and 4 knits. Next, going to be purling 4 because you want 4 purls between each X. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I just purled 4, and now, as you can guess probably, next up is going to be the second X, so that's going to be 4 knit stitches. And I'm just going to finish up, skip ahead and finish up this row, and then I'll get back to you on the other side. But you're basically just going to be knitting 4 stitches for this X, 4 stitches for these purls, 4 knit stitches again for the last X, and then 6 purls for the very end. So now you should be able to see just barely where your knits are and where your purls are. And since this is going to be the back side, we're just going to knit and purl all the way through it, not having to worry about changing the stitches or doing any cabling or anything like that. So just go ahead and start knitting the knits and purling the purls, unless you want to do something special with the border, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to purl it just to make a nice little seed stitch. And then for the rest of everything else, you're going to be doing the same thing you were doing on the front side. So just knitting the knits and purling the purls. So we're going to be knitting 4 stitches, purling 4 stitches, knitting 4 stitches, purling 4 stitches for the entire row. Just doing the opposite of what we did on the front side. So here I'm knitting, and now we're at the first X, so I'm going to purl it. And then I'm going to knit the next 4 because they're on the other side of the X. And I'm just going to do that, knitting the knits and purling the purls for the rest of this row. Now we're back on the front side, and now is where we're going to start cable knitting. And from here on out, we're going to be cabling at least once every single row. So for this first part, we're going to actually cross the X's. And here you can really see pretty clearly where the purls are and where the knits are. So here's the first 4 sets of purls for the edge, and then here's where the first X is going to be. So we're going to cable these. Then there's 4 purls, 4 knits. We're going to cable these, 4 purls, and then 4 stitches that we'll cable, and then 4 on the end. So let's get started. So I'm just going to purl up to the first cable, or the first X that we're going to cable. And if you look at the example that I have here, the left 2 stitches are going up and over the right 2 stitches. And then on the far side, it's doing the opposite. The right 2 stitches are going out and over. So to do that, we're going to slip off the first 2 stitches on the right side with the cable needle, and we're going to bring it to the back. And then we're going to knit these 2 stitches like we would cable them. So that's going to bring the cable over and to the right. Knit those 2 and then knit them off of the cable needle. And if you aren't too sure about cable knitting, or you need a refresher on cable knitting, definitely go check out my cable knitting tutorial for a little crash course. So that first X has been crossed, and now we're going to purl those next 4 stitches that are after the X. And 4. And now we're at the second X, and the X in the middle, different people will probably tell you different things, But with the Saxon braid, the X's in the middle, it's not too important which side of the cable gets crossed and which side doesn't. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I did on the first X. I'm going to bring it to the back and bring the cable, the left side cable, over the right side. But you can do either direction really. So I'm going to knit these two off. With two X's down, we only have one left to go. So I'm going to purl these 4 stitches. And now at the last X that we have, we're going to make sure that the right section of the cable goes over and out to the left. So to do that, you're going to slip off these 2 stitches, and instead of sending them to the back, we're going to send them to the front so they go to the left. So knit the back 2 stitches, and now you can knit off those 2 stitches from the cable. And now we're at the very end, so you can just purl the last 4 stitches, or 6 stitches because of the 2 that are on the border. Like all good cable projects, the backside is always the easiest part because you're just knitting the knits and purling the purls. You don't have to worry about cabling or anything like that. So you can kind of see the X's that we crossed. Can't really tell much of a difference yet. So I'm just going to knit and purl all the way through to the end, and then I'll meet you back on the front side. Now I'm back on the front side, and now you can see the X's. The first row of X's are always going to be a little choppy just because it's your first row, but there they are, 1, 2, 3 X's, and now comes the braiding part, I guess. We're going to be taking apart these X's and moving them around, and they're going to be forming 2 X's in between here. So if you look at our chart, we're going to be making another row of X's right on top of this, but it's just going to be 2 X's. So there's going to be an X here and an X here. The cables, they're going to be coming to these X's to form them like this. So that's how you can kind of think of these X's on the bottom. They're going to be coming apart, forming 2 X's here in between them. And then for the arms of the cable over here on these X's, these guys are just going to go all the way out and come back in later. So that's what we're going to work on now. The easy way to think about it is you're going to be moving each arm of the cable. You're going to be moving 2 stitches, 2 spaces, each time you move them anywhere. So I'm just knitting to that first X, but we're going to be moving these first 2 stitches on the right side of the cable. Going to be moving 2 stitches to the right. So I've got 2 purls here. I'm going to slip off the 2 purls and bring them to the back so we can make the cable go to the right. So 2 stitches, 2 stitches, and then I'm going to purl off the 2 purls here. So that's moving that first 2x2 cable to the right 2 stitches. And now for this X, we're going to be moving that one to the left 2 stitches as well. So slip off the 2 stitches, move it to the front because we're going to move it to the left, and then purl 2 stitches. And I apologize for the marker that is on my hand. I'm a 5-year-old. And now I'm going to knit the 2 stitches off that cable. So already you can tell what's happening. The X that we had originally is getting split apart. So now there's 4 stitches in between the 2 cables. So there's just the cables getting split up. And if you didn't catch that, rewind it and watch it again. But we're basically going to be doing that again for every other X. So already we're ready to split apart the second X. So slip off the next 2 purls, because you already moved the other 2 purls over there. Yeah, I don't know. It's very confusing. But slip off those 2 purls, slide them to the right, and we're going to be knitting 2 stitches off, which is going to split them up. And then bring it back and purl those. Now we're on the last 2 stitches for this X, and to do the same thing we did for the last one, we're going to move it 2 to the left, take off 2, and then purl 2. Make sure you bring it to the front so it goes to the left, and then bring it back up and knit off those 2 stitches. We're on the very last X, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to split it up. So slip off those 2 stitches, the purls, bring them to the back, knit 2 stitches, and then purl the 2 stitches again. And then we've got the last arm of that X. On the last X, you're going to do the same thing, slip them off, bring it to the front and purl 2 stitches. So we're going to move it 2 to the left, 1 and 2, bring back up the stitches and knit them off. And now for your border and the end, you're just going to purl through or do whatever you want for your border. And then, like all cable projects, the back side is going to be the easiest. So just flip your knitting over and knit the knits and purl the purls just like you normally would. Really easy breezy, but just make sure now that you're not getting mixed up, because now the knits and the purls are all split up. So you can't rely on the first pattern that you originally had. So just be careful when you're doing that, but the basic rule stays the same. You're just knitting the knits and purling the purls. So go through that backside real quickly, and then I will meet you back on the front side. Congratulations, you made it. Now you can easily see what is going on here. We split up the X's, and now we're ready for the 2 X's here. So if you look at your handy little chart here, we're going to be making these 2 X's. So we're going to be crossing these 2 X's that are right here, 1 and 2. And then for these little arms that are on the ends, we're going to make them go out a little further and then slowly bring them back in on the next rows. Knit your border however you're planning on doing your border. And then for this first right arm here, the jury is kind of out on what to do with these end pieces that go out. You can I like to bring them out 2 spaces, so I'm going to take the 2 purls and move them out. But some people will say otherwise. Some people will say to either leave them the same or only move them out one stitch. It kind of depends on how you want your knitting to look like. I like to have a lot of space between the cables, so I like to bring it out 2 spaces. But if you just want to do 1 stitch or do no stitches at all, you can definitely do that. It's all kind of up to you. I'll show you a couple examples of that in a minute actually. But I'm going to knit those off. And then I've got 2 purls here that I'm just going to actually knit like normal finally. We're not going to have to worry about cabling a bunch of stuff. Actually 4 purls, sorry. You're going to purl 4 stitches because that's going to be the 4 in between the X's. We're still following that rule. And so now we're at the first X and we're going to cross it just like we crossed those first row of X's on the bottom. So if you look at your example, we're focusing right now on these 2 crosses right here. I need a 3rd arm to hold this. But we're going to be doing these 2 crosses here, and I like to bring the outer one over, so this left, the far ones are going inwards, but again, whether they go over or under, it's kind of personal preference. People will tell you different things depending on different patterns, but the most important part of the Saxon stitch or Saxon braid is that you're at least crossing them. So I'm going to bring them over. So for the first X, I'm going to take off the 2 stitches and bring them over and knit 2 stitches off. Then bring up my cable and knit those off too. So we've crossed that X. Now we get to purl the 4 stitches in between the 2 X's. So purl 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now for the last X, or the second X, we're going to bring the outer cable inwards. So I'm going to take the 2 off, I'm going to move it to the back and knit the 2 stitches here, which will bring the cable over, and then knit the 2 off the cable. And then the easy part, we just knit 4 stitches here. And here's the last arm of that cable that's going out. Like I said before, it's personal preference, totally up to you. I like to bring it over 2 stitches because I like the outer arms to go out pretty far. But you can either move it over just 1 stitch or not even move it over at all. It's up to you, but I'm going to move it out 2 stitches and then knit it back up. And then, surprise, surprise, you are done with that row. So finish your border and then flip it over onto the back side and knit the knits and purl the purls straight through. So flip it over, knit the knits and purl the purls on the back side all the way through like you've been doing, and then I will meet you on the front side and we'll take a look at it. Here we are, back on the front side. Are you starting to get the hang of what we're doing? Hopefully you are. We've crossed the 2 crosses here, and now we only have 1 more cross to do. If you look at the example, we're going to be doing this middle one, the kind of the middle pretzel part of the Saxon braid. That's what we're going to be working on. And we're going to be moving out these 2 arms a little further and these ones are going to stay the same. So it actually gets easier from here on out. What we're doing now is we're going to gear up for the X that's going to be right here in the middle. And these arms are going to be coming in to form the X. These arms are going to be going out and in. And these ones over here are going to be staying the same. Knit or purl your border like normal. And then right away you're going to be hit with this arm of the cable, or this cable, sorry, that's going all the way out. And since he doesn't have any further to go, I'm just going to leave him normal. He's going to be going straight. So knit those two. We're not going to have to worry about cabling them in any direction, so that is super fun. And then you're just going to purl to the next arm. But you're going to stop 2 stitches before that X. So purl that. And now we've got 2 more purls, and we're going to do what we did when we were splitting up these 3 first crosses. We're going to split up these 2 crosses. So take off the 2 purls here. 1, 2, and you're going to bring them to the back so we can take this arm of the cross 2 stitches to the right. So knit 2. And then bring back up the 2 purls and purl them off. And then we're going to split up this one, and we're going to do like we did before, slip them off, and we're going to purl 2 stitches, so we move it 2 stitches to the left. And knit those off. And then we've got the second X here. We're going to split this one up too. So take off the 2 purls that are left in between, move them to the right, and knit 2 stitches. Then purl these 2 stitches. Hopefully you are getting the hang of this by now and figuring out what we're going to do, because in a couple more rows we're going to flip everything upside down. So last arm here, we're going to move this arm over 2 stitches. So we're going to purl. We brought it to the front so it goes to the left. And knit those off. And now you're done. Just gonna knit all the way through, and then this last arm, we're gonna keep sending him just straight, so you're gonna knit those. So purl, purl, purl. Then we're gonna knit that last arm, sending him straight, and then flip your work over to the back side, and you're gonna knit and purl like normal all the way through the back side. And then I will meet you back here on the front side, and we will be ready to cross that just 1 X now. Now we're back on the front side, and now we are ready to cross this last X that is at the very top. And these 2 arms on either side, we're not going to pay attention to them. They're just going to be going straight up. So this is probably the easiest row you're going to be doing. So knit everything like normal. You don't have to worry about cabling or anything like that until we get to that middle X. So I'm just going to purl and knit all the way through here. Knit that arm there and purl. Now some people, like I said before, they will bring this arm out further and this arm out further. I like to keep it as is, but depending on your pattern or whoever is telling you the rules, they might say otherwise, but I like to keep that where it's at. So purl, and then knit through that arm 2 stitches like normal, and then purl 2 stitches, or just kidding, 4 stitches. And now we're at the middle part. So here is the middle X, and like I explained before, it's personal preference whether you want the right arm to go over the left arm or the left arm to go over the right arm. I typically like to have the right side going over the left side. So I'm going to take off 2 stitches and bring it to the front, which will bring it over, and then knit off those 2 stitches. Bring it back up, knit off the cable, and now you're done. You cross that X. Now you can just knit worry-free all the way, the rest of the way through to the end. So I'm going to knit all the way through the end, and then I'm going to knit all the way through the back side. Then I'll show you, we'll be back on the front side and we'll take a look at what's going on. So now we are back on the front, and let's recap what we did. So we've got 3 X's here. There's 1, 2, 3, and then 2 X's right above them, 1, 2, and then 1 last X at the top, just 1 right here. So if you look on our little chart, we have made a nice little pyramid of X's here. And so now, this might be kind of bittersweet, but we're only halfway through the pattern. But it is easier. What we're gonna be doing now is building back kind of an inverted pyramid. So you're gonna be building 2 X's here, and then 3 X's above those. So building back the pyramid. And I'm actually going to be showing you how to do that over in part 2 of this video. So if you think you have it figured out and you think you can figure out what happens with the pattern, you're basically just bringing in these 2 arms and building up the pyramid again. Definitely just go ahead and do that. If you want to see how I do that and get the tips on that, go ahead over to part 2, and I'll be showing you how to finish up the rest of this pattern. But good luck no matter what you do. You did an awesome job getting through these X's and all this cabling. So thanks for watching, and if you move over to part 2, I will see you there.